So Radha is from Leicester. She did a chat at our Mela Summerlin in May about endometriosis, and we found that a lot of people didn't really know about endometriosis, so we thought we'd do a webinar about it so we can just get some more information. So I'll hand you over to Radha Mistry now, and she will do the session. Thank you, Radha.
Thank you, Mina, for the introduction. So yes, as Mina said, I'm actually a volunteer for Endometriosis UK, based here in Leicester. And what I do is I as well as another team leader, we hold support group meetings for women or those that have been assigned women at birth that have endometriosis, and we basically offer support and advice on how to live with the condition, how to navigate through the health system, because it can be quite confusing, even just giving advice on some of the medication. I mean, we're not medical professionals by all means, we're just volunteers, but I've had endometriosis for most of my 20s, so we're talking about, and most of my late teens, so about 12 to 13 years I've had endometriosis. So if you mention a drug, I've probably had it. So it's been good to kind of offer support in that sense. As Mina Ben had said, I did do a presentation this year for the MLS Mellon, so I'm going to do that presentation, and I'm just going to share my screen. So if you could just confirm that you can see my screen, that would be great. Rightio. Can everyone see this? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. That's grand. Let's, for some reason it went all the way to the end. Rightio. So as I said, my name is Radha Mistry, and I'm a support group for the Leicester support group in Leicester. So who are we? We are a charity that's based in London, but we have support groups all over the country. Our vision as a charity is we want to improve the lives of those affected with endometriosis and work towards a future where it has the least impact on those living with this particular condition. Our mission as a charity is to try and help people overcome the impact of it, the impact that endometriosis has on an individual's lives, because we found that endometriosis doesn't just affect you physically, it affects you mentally, emotionally, it affects your day-to-day, your relationships, your work life, your romantic relationships. It has such a huge impact on every element of your life. So we want to try and overcome that impact. We'd like everyone to have the right to fast, appropriate care, the right support and treatment, and for society as well. So people that are around us to really fully understand what endometriosis is and the impact that it has, and to be aware of the work that Endometriosis UK are doing at the moment. So I've been saying endometriosis, but what is it? What is endometriosis? So it is a condition where the cells that are similar to those that are found in the lining of the womb are found elsewhere. So where can they be found? They can be found on your ovaries, on your outside of your womb, outside of your ovaries, on your stomach, your colon. It can go as far as your lungs, your heart, and in some cases, even your brain. They found it in your brain. And these cells, they react and they behave the same way as those that are found in the lining of your womb. So they build up, they break down, and they bleed. So those cells that build up, break down, and bleed in your womb, that's what a period is. So when you bleed, you have your period. So there's a way for those cells to escape the body. However, those cells that are on the outside of your cervix and on your stomach and your colon, they do all the building, they do all the breaking, but they've got nowhere to go. So these cells just keep growing and growing in these affected areas. And it can cause a lot of discomfort and a lot of pain for the woman that has endometriosis. Some key information about it is that it is so popular as well. I mentioned in the Mahela Sammelan that everyone's heard of diabetes. You know, everyone has an uncle, an auntie, a cousin that has diabetes. 1 in 10 people have diabetes. That's how common it is. And it's so quick to get diagnosed with diabetes. All you need is a blood test, and you know within a couple of days that you have it. Now, with endometriosis, 1 in 10 women have endometriosis. So we all know someone that has it. It's just nobody talks about it, because it's such a taboo subject. Talking about your periods, talking about menstruation, it's considered a bit of a dirty little secret, which is really sad because there's so many of us that have it. About 10% of the worldwide population, so about 176 million women have endometriosis. In the UK, it's the second most common gynecological condition, and it costs our economy approximately 8.2 billion a year in treatment, loss of work, and even healthcare costs as well. The sad truth is the cause of endometriosis is unknown. So it's not a particular food you're eating, it's not something hormonal, it's not, you know, a particular chemical that's in the products that you're using that causes endometriosis. We still don't know. There's still so much research out there to find out what is this cause. And also there's no definitive cure. So when people tell you go have a baby, it's not going to help. Having a baby isn't going to cure endometriosis. You know, in some cases, going on the contraceptive pill doesn't always cure endometriosis, or even taking pain medication. It doesn't cure it. It just puts a temporary plaster on it. What are some of the symptoms of endometriosis? So it's chronic pain and painful periods to a point where it does affect your day-to-day life. You can't go to work or school or college because you are in so much pain. There's also like irregularity in your periods. So sometimes, you know, for me, I didn't know that it wasn't normal that you should be on your period for 14 days. I thought that was normal in my eyes until, you know, I had a conversation. So my periods were really, really long, really, really painful, and really, really heavy. It also causes bowel problems. So you can get constipation and diarrhea. Also like bloatingness. I used to look about 6 months pregnant all the time when I was having a flare up because my endo was so bad. Sex can be quite painful during and after. Chronic fatigue as well, so constantly feeling tired. You know, you're losing a lot of blood, so it can cause tiredness. It can also have difficulties in getting pregnant, and as a result it can be quite isolating and can cause mental health issues like depression, because it's difficult to actually talk about it with people. There's also the negative side as well. Another negative side, sorry, is that you have difficulties in fulfilling work and doing social commitments. There's been countless times where, you know, I've had to cancel plans or not turn up for things or leave early for parties, meetings, or, you know, events that I've gone to because I'm in so much pain. The routes for diagnosis and treatment is surgery. So the only effective way to officially diagnose yourself with endometriosis is through laparoscopic surgery. So that's keyhole surgery. And sometimes some women find surgery effective. So there's 2 different types of surgery available. There's an ablation, which is where they burn the endometriosis cells from the affected areas. And then there's incision surgery as well, where they cut the cells out of the affected areas. Both only about 25% of sufferers have found surgery effective and helped, that it has relieved some of their symptoms, and about 17% said it wasn't effective at all. So surgery is one route that a woman can go down to get some relief and treatment from endometriosis. There's also hormonal treatment. There's things like the contraceptive pill, the coil, implants, and even injections, which can put your body through kind of like a state of early menopause to kind of give your body a bit of a factory reset with your hormones. There's also pain relief, so different types of pain relief medication, some that are available over the counter, and some that are very, very, very strong opioids. There's also complementary therapy. So a lot of women in our support group have said things like acupuncture to be quite beneficial, physiotherapy, pelvic physiotherapy, CBD oils, TENS machines as well have proven to be quite effective as well. So what's it like living with endometriosis? So we have some quotes from some of our sufferers as well. So one lady said that her manager said that you don't look sick, you know, when they came back from work. You know, everyone has periods and they just get on with it. You know, endometriosis is one of those things where it does affect your whole body. It's a very painful condition where things like walking is very difficult. I know from my personal experience, I can't sit for too long when I'm having a flare up, because my whole back and my bum and my legs just go very, very numb. Another quote from this particular lady was that their manager was asking why they go to the toilet so often. Are you texting your friends? You know, do that on your lunch break. You know, sometimes you do need to go to the toilet very often because your periods are very, very heavy, and you know, it causes you discomfort, so you need to go sort that out. Another quote was, in certain cultures, menstruation is still considered dirty, and many are subjected to missing out on aspects of their daily lives, such as family occasions or visiting religious institutions, because they're menstruating. Having a support group in Leicester, I've had a lot of women and girls that have come from an Asian background that find it so difficult to talk about this, because nobody talks about periods in their family home or with their friends or even with their own parents, because it's considered you know, like a dirty little secret, like a taboo subject. So, and it's really hard, you know, being told that you can't come to certain events because you're on your period, and you feel really isolated because you're considered dirty. It doesn't help that person's mental health. It doesn't help them feel okay to talk about this condition openly. So, as we all know, we had COVID, and COVID affected everybody in many ways, and it affected endometriosis sufferers massively. There was a huge cancellation of surgeries. Only some are restarting now. There was a huge delay in appointments, really long waiting lists. From my personal experience, I was put on a waiting list in November 2019 to have surgery. I didn't get my surgery date until August 2021. So I would have had to wait 18 months for surgery. And it impacted me massively to do anything, any day to day, because my symptoms have got so bad. There was ongoing treatments were unavailable, unsatisfactory symptom management. This obviously had a huge impact on people's mental health. There was a rise in depression, and there was also a rise in being dependent on medication and painkillers, and a lot of us developing addiction to these painkillers, because that was the only thing that was available to us during COVID and during that pandemic. It was especially difficult for those that had thoracic endometriosis. So that's endometriosis in your chest and in your lungs. They had to be even more careful, considering the effect that COVID had on an individual. It obviously was a respiratory condition, and it affected your lungs. I think one of the benefits of the pandemic for a lot of us was that home working was beneficial. You know, I worked from home during the pandemic, and it meant that I was able to go to the toilet easily. I was able to wear comfortable clothing, and you know, able to manage my symptoms a little bit better. And if I needed to go sit down or lay down, I was able to do that and not have, you know, my managers going, oh, why are you not sat at your desk? So like everyone, it had a huge impact. Only now that surgeries and treatments are starting to come back and be, and people are having surgery dates come through. So as I said, I also have endometriosis. So my journey so far has had its ups and downs, shall we say. So I officially got diagnosed in 2016 via laparoscopy, sorry. So that's keyhole surgery. However, before that, I had about 5 or 6 years of going back and forth to the doctor, because they couldn't figure out what was going on. I had about 5 or 6 years going to the hospital, to going to A&E, having different types of tests and swabs and internals and externals and scans, mainly because the reason why it's so difficult for endometriosis to be diagnosed is because of where it sits. It's obviously in your abdomen area. There's so many different organs that sit there. And so it was a case of being a bit of a detective for my doctors, trying to cancel out what it is. Is it polycystic ovaries? No, it's not. Is it, you know, a UTI or a kidney infection? So I had tests for all of these different types of ailments just to try and figure out what was going on. And eventually my gynecologist had decided to have keyhole surgery to have a look inside. And they found in 2016 that I did have endometriosis. I then, a year later, had my second surgery, which was an ablation. So they tried to burn the endometriosis out of the affected areas. Unfortunately, that wasn't as effective and it wasn't as successful as I had hoped. So I had 2 more years of trying to manage my pain. I had tried all types of medication, holistic therapies, Ayurvedic medication, you know, trying the herbal route, going to see an acupuncturist, and nothing seemed to have worked. As I said earlier in the presentation, I was due to have my third surgery in March 2020. And that didn't happen. Everything went into lockdown and my symptoms completely exacerbated. I was in so much pain that I wasn't able to sleep. So I was up all the time. I started to lose the feeling in my legs because the pain was so severe. And, you know, I had to hand in my notice for my job. I had to move back home with my parents. You know, it affected everything, all aspects of my life. You know, I had no job at one point. You know, moving back and having my parents look after me as well, that was a huge change. And it was towards the end of 2020 that it was decided that we would go privately because the wait was so long. And my third surgery was very long. It was about 5 hours long, and they found endometriosis all over my ovaries, all over my cervix, and my ovaries and my colon were stuck together, which was sitting on my nerve, which was causing the sciatica pain and me losing the feeling in my legs. So it was quite traumatic, to say the least. And you know, I did the best I could to recover for the whole of 2021, and then unfortunately earlier in this year, in about May 2022, I found out that my endometriosis has come back. I had an MRI scan and I found that it's back and I need to have my 4th surgery for it. So surgery isn't a cure, unfortunately. As I've said earlier, it just helps ease my pain. And I've tried all different types of therapies to just try and ease my pain, but it doesn't go away. That's the thing. I could be doing this presentation right now, but actually I'm sat and I'm experiencing pain right now. It's one of those things that happens every single day. And when it's really bad, that's when I'm having to kind of go, yeah, I'm out of action because I cannot function that's my journey so far. So what do we do as a charity? So we have a helpline, we have online support, we also have information on our website. As I said, I'm a group support leader, so we hold online meetings for our group in Leicester. But we have had face-to-face meetings as well. And in our support groups, we offer advice, we offer help on how to navigate the healthcare system, how to get the best out of your GP appointments, consultation appointments. We also kind of share on experiences on what type of medications we've had before, what has worked, what hasn't worked. I know a lot of the ladies in our group, we kind of go, oh, have you tried this? And you know, it's a great way of sharing and supporting and having a safe space to talk openly and freely about how we're really feeling, because a lot of us have found that talking about menstruation and the pain that you're experiencing, we find it difficult to talk about it with our family, with our friends, because it is a taboo subject. And we're trying to break those barriers and make it so it's okay to talk about it. And if you are experiencing problems, if your period is affecting your day-to-day life to a point where you have to stop and go home or stay in bed, then there's something that needs to be looked at. You know, go speak to your doctor about what you're experiencing, what your pain is like. As a charity as well, we do campaigning work to try and raise awareness amongst the public, to improve education and support research. I know the Association for Leicester have chosen Endometriosis UK as their chosen charity. They've done a sponsored walk, which is fantastic, and raised loads of funds, which we are greatly appreciative of. The charity also has a friendly employer scheme. So if there's any businesses out there, there's a scheme out there to enable employers to work towards improving support for those with a chronic long-term condition. And it's also, you know, it helps employers make sure that those that do have this condition, you know, make it an environment where staff are comfortable talking about it, and also making adjustments so that, you know, that individual does feel comfortable coming into work. So back in 2020, there was a APPG, so an all-party parliamentary group report that was brought to Parliament. It was a huge report because it really highlighted in mainstream media, there's a key problem and we need help and we need assistance. And one of the big things that was highlighted from this report is that it approximately takes about 8 years for a woman to be diagnosed with endometriosis. So that's 8 years of going to the doctor with the same symptoms, going, I'm having really heavy periods, it's affecting my day-to-day. 8 years going to the doctors, 8 years going to hospital, to A&E, you know, trying different types of drugs. That's a really long time for someone to get diagnosed with the same problem. I know for me, it took about 5 to 6 years. And it came to a point where I personally thought, am I going mad? Is this pain in my head? You know, and it's only until you get your official diagnosis, when you've got a name for what's going on, where you think that actually I'm not going crazy. It is real. So 8.8 years to get diagnosed in England at the moment. Some other statistics that came from this report is that about 58% of us had gone to the doctors 10 or more times with the same symptoms. You know, 53% of us had gone to A&E. We had found that, you know, about 32% found our gynecologists not helpful. I had a couple of gynecologists that didn't believe my pain. You know, they couldn't understand how much pain I was in, and I was like, yeah, you know, I'm not making this up. About 90% of us would have liked psychological support. So that's things like counselling or, you know, group support about the pain and the isolation that they're feeling. And 81% of us found that it had a huge impact on our mental health in a negative manner. So there was, not only are you feeling isolated and down, you know, there's thoughts of suicide and there's all these horrible feelings that you're getting, and that we weren't getting the right support during the pandemic. And even now, there's definitely highlighted some key issues. One of the biggest issues was that out of the 10,783 respondents that had filled in this questionnaire and this survey, there was such a small percentage, about 220 respondents had come from an Asian background. And it just highlighted that actually, you know, in this community, in our Asian community, you know, women need to speak up, women need to kind of come forward, because then we have representation, we can have these reports that can kind of represent us and kind of cater to our requirements and try and get better care and better treatment for us. There's a big need for change. It's highlighted so much change. And earlier this year as well, so I think in September, there was another APPG report as well, more so highlighting on the fact that there needs to be a bit more transparency with the hospitals, because things like waiting times for surgery and appointments, nobody knows about. You know, we're told, you know, sometimes some of the ladies in our support group are still waiting for surgery, and you know, it's been 2 years since the pandemic, so that report is definitely highlighted that there is some change needed. So the government has committed to drive down diagnosis times. They would like to implement the NICE guidelines and have more awareness and education for health practitioners. They've also said there's a big push for recognition of menstrual conditions by employers. So not only endometriosis, but also menopause, PCOS, that's polycystic ovary syndrome. So there's a big push for those conditions to be recognized by HR and by practitioners, and also menstrual well-being to be implemented in schools and in education UK-wide. So hopefully all these changes will come in place in the next year or so. And that's the end of my presentation. Do we have any questions at all? Let me stop sharing. How do I? There we go. Are there any questions or?
If you want to mute yourself, if you want to ask any questions, that'd be great.
No.
So Radha, I've got a question.
Sure.
I've just flabbergasted. It took 8 years to get it diagnosed. Has that time period come down? Because it seems if 1 in 10 women are suffering from this, then actually the diagnosis should be, you know, quicker.
Yeah.
In my simplistic brain. And why is that not the case? Is there something that is stopping that, or there's other factors involved?
So there is a big drive for diagnosis to come down. Some women have been lucky enough for it to just take less than a year, but it's because it's so complex. Where your ovaries and where it sits, there's so many different organs. You know, you've got your kidneys, your colon, your stomach, and when you come in to say, oh, I've got pain in my abdomen, it could mean a number of things. It could mean that, you know, you're having problems with your digestive system. It could be your kidneys or your liver. And so it's a bit like ticking off things from a list and kind of trying to go, okay, so it's not your liver, what could it be? Could it be your kidneys? No, we've done a urine test. Could it be this? And unfortunately, the only way to diagnose a woman with endometriosis is through surgery. And, you know, I think practitioners don't want to have to kind of go right straight. You've come in, you've got abdominal pain, we're just going to take you into surgery, because it seems like a bit of a haste to kind of go straight to surgery. So I think it's a case of they're wanting to kind of cancel out everything else, what it could be, and that's what's taking so long. But it has been highlighted that actually there is a need for this diagnosis time to come down.
Hi Radha, I've got a question. Thanks for the presentation. That was really good, and I really feel for you, and listening to your story, brought me to tears actually. It's just really like to hear your story and everything. I wanted to ask, how young can somebody get endometriosis?
So as soon as they start menstruating, so girls menstruate, they, you know, from the ages of 8 now, you know, young as 8. So yeah, so another reason why it takes so long is because a lot of the GP practitioners kind of have a bit of an old school mentality where it's like, oh, you know, you're only so young, you shouldn't be having so much pain. So there's a lot of not being heard. So from the age of from starting menstruation, that's when endometriosis can develop. And the sad thing is that some girls go through all their teens and all that pain, and it's only until they get into their late teens and 20s where they officially get diagnosed, because doctors just downplay it. They just kind of go, oh, you know, here's the pill, and they've put a temporary plaster on it. So it is really sad. So it's some of the things that you can look out for if you think you have endometriosis or you have a gynecological problem. If your period, or if you're menstruating and it's affecting your day-to-day life to a point where you can't go to school or you can't go to the doctors, and the pain is so severe where over-the-counter medication, so things like paracetamol, ibuprofen, cocodamol, if those things aren't working, then you need to go speak to your doctor, because there's something not right. And that's when that can start the whole investigation process.
Okay, thanks. I've got a couple of questions from people who've just messaged me.
Okay.
So one of them is, between your operations, did the pain go? And then does it come back once the operation's done, or does it disappear, or how do you know, sort of thing?
Yeah, so after I had my surgeries, especially the one that I had in 2020, my pain did go down. You know, I was able to have a period and I was fine and I could still function. I didn't have to spend a couple of days in bed. But then what slowly started to happen is that I started to get, the only way I can describe it is like a sharp jab. In my pain is predominantly on my left side, my left ovary. I don't know what's going on in my left ovary, but it was like a sharp pain where it jars you. And then that became quite frequent, and I noticed things like bleeding in between my periods, which then kind of gave me an indication to kind of go, right, something's not right. And I actually pushed for an MRI by my GP, and that's when I found out that it's back. So I had about I think it was about 6 or 7 months where I felt okay. And then it started again. So yeah.
Okay, then another question. Are there things that you can do for yourself to help, like exercise and stuff? Can that relieve pain and things?
Yeah, so there's loads of things that have helped. So things like looking at your diet is a big thing. So whatever you ingest, it determines how you function. You know, your stomach is your second brain, realistically. So things like, for me, dairy, gluten were my big offenders. If I had them, I would feel really bloaty. My pain was more intense if I'd had dairy. I love cheese, so this is like the biggest thing that I had to stop, which was heartbreaking for me. And things like soft exercise can help. So yoga, Pilates, if you like to kind of calm, you know, have something a little less intense. Heat patches, hot water bottles, TENS machine. So it's a little machine that you stick onto your body and it lets out like electrical pulses. Those are really helpful for temporary pain relief. So yeah, a number of things have been helpful, but diet's a big thing for someone that a big advice that I can give if you think you have endometriosis and you need to go to your doctors is keep a diary of your period, what you're eating, and when your pain kind of spikes, because then you can kind of see kind of trends and flows. If you've had like lots of gluten one day and lots of dairy, and then your period is out of squib, then you kind of can kind of pinpoint that actually that's something that might be affecting it. And you can take all that evidence that you can say, look, this is how my periods are, you know, if they're heavy, they're light, they're clotting, what color the blood is. Honestly, as much detail as you can, take that to the doctors, because the one thing that we've noticed is you get 10 minutes with your GP and they are very quick to get you in and get you out. If you present them with all the information, they can kind of go, right, let's have a look. Because if you, sometimes when you don't, they'll just go, right, keep a diary and come back in 3 months' time. And you've gone, well, that's 6 months now that I've had to kind of wait, or, you know, that's another 3 months I have to wait. So try and keep a diary of your symptoms and your pain. That's a really good way of tracking your symptoms.
Thanks, Radha. Anyone else got any questions? Don't feel shy.
I have. Yeah, wanted to know what is the treatment or the how does the clinician or a gynecologist diagnose that you have got endometriosis? What is the only thing that they can do a test on to confirm that you got endometriosis?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's not like how you have diabetes. You have a blood test, and within 3 days, you are you find out your results. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. A way, the gold standard to get diagnosed with endometriosis is through keyhole surgery. And that's your clinician's decision to kind of go, yes, you need to go for surgery. So that's the only way, unfortunately.
Thank you.
No worries. Any more questions? No.
Have you found many Asian people on your the endometriosis group?
So we're based in Leicester. So we have had a fair few Asian women come to our group. Not as many. I've had women that have approached me on like Facebook or Instagram. And the really sad thing is they've gone, I can't come to a meeting because I can't tell my mum, husband, boyfriend, partner, whoever they're with, because we don't talk about it. So it's very secretive, and that's the really sad thing, that they can't come to these groups and have a couple of hours where they can kind of just go, I feel like this. So we have had a few ladies that do turn up, which is great, but even they've had their own challenges where they've had so we have one lady that's, you know, been married for X amount of years, and they constantly pester her about why she's not had children, and it's gone, well, I have endometriosis, you know, it's difficult to have children because of endometriosis, and because of their families and the family dynamics, she can't come to the groups very often, because they'll be like, well, why are you here, why are you doing that, talk to us. And it's like, well, she can't talk to her family because they're very judgmental, you know, they'll say you shouldn't talk about things like this. And it should only be discussed by women. No, men need to know about these conditions as well, because, you know, every man here has a woman in their life that's important to them, and if they're suffering and they're suffering in silence, that's not fair. That's not fair for them to suffer in silence. So I talk about it with my dad all the time, because he sees me, you know, he sees me bent over in the bathroom floor in pain. And what kind of father would just walk away and go, it's not my problem? You know, you need to open these channels so that we can talk about them and explain and find out what's going on. I didn't know that this potentially could be a genetic problem as well. You know, I found out that my mum had problems with her periods. And then when I talk about it a little more, you know, I found out that some of my cousins had problems getting pregnant. So it was like, could that be because they may have something? And, you know, if you've got nieces or granddaughters, surely you would like to have them come to you and get diagnosed, come to you and talk to you openly, and also get diagnosed quicker. You know, that you don't want them to suffer. That's the one thing we don't want, is for them to go through 8 years of suffering.
Yeah, I agree. I think that men need to know about all these things as well. It's not just a woman's problem at the end of the day. Men, you have husbands, partners, fathers, sons, everyone needs to know about it. I think it's not just a woman's problem. So yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Definitely. Is there any more? So yeah, I think there's someone's mentioned about the group. What I'll try and do is I'll send you the details for the support group, and then it's just a link to a Facebook group. And then we could probably post that on the Prajapati website for those that have endometriosis, and they can join that support group as well. But also on the Endometriosis UK website is the details for all the support groups that are across the country as well, not just Leicester. So yeah, there are. I think there's someone that's mentioned about groups outside of Leicester. Yes, there's groups outside of Leicester as well. Yeah.
Do any of the gents on here would like to ask any questions? Any of the men want to ask a question? Don't feel shy.
Radhi.
No, I think Radha, thank you for the presentation. Excellent. As a father of 3 girls of young age between 12 and 20, I do know very much the issues you ladies go through and stuff. They don't suffer from endometriosis, but there are other issues they suffer from. So I think you are right. Fathers nowadays certainly should get more engaged in their children's activities, be it boys or girls, and understand what they're going through. Hopefully by doing this session and talking about it, we can get more of our community and men and women involved and talk about it. That's the aim. I'm so glad you've come on board and talked about it today and given us some real facts and stuff. I mean, I never knew 1 in 10 people, when 1 in 10 women suffer from it. That's a huge number. 176 million throughout the world, costing 8.2 billion. And the biggest thing I think is, don't be silent about it. Talk to somebody if you can. And hopefully our community is becoming more open, and there are still pockets where it's insulated, but if we can share that now and say actually you can talk about it, it will be better for the future as well. And I think the biggest thing I picked up from you is actually tracking the symptoms, because you're right, because Joe, if you suffer for 6 months or something and you don't write it down, you go to the doctors, it's going to be another 3 to 6 months before you get diagnosed. But if you do suffer from it, start writing a diary down. Can soothe you. At what times does it happen? When does it happen? What have you eaten? Things like that. It just makes your doctors easier to diagnose it, I guess, really. So straight away start doing a diary, not only for this, but for any other symptoms you have for which can lead to other diagnoses as well. So it's really important that we do that.
That's right. Any more questions?
Oh, yeah, I've just got a question here.
Oh,
if can older women who've had hysterectomies, could that be a cure?
it's not a cure. Hysterectomy is not a cure, because it's cells that are growing. It doesn't determine. Sometimes you've taken out your ovaries and your cervix and stuff, but those cells can still grow. So some women have found relief from it, but you're still taking HRT, so you're still taking hormones, and if those hormones aren't balanced right, you can sometimes still develop endometriosis. Yeah, it's a tricky one, that one is, because you think I put my hands up at the age of 24. I actually asked for a hysterectomy because I was so fed up with the pain.
Yeah.
And my doctor was like, not happening. A, it may not work, and B, you're 24. Like, not doing it. So
yeah, because the person that's asking about whether after you've had children, whether the hysterectomy would be an option to then get rid of endometriosis. But like you're saying, you can still have children with endometriosis, but it's just, for different people, it's different effects, isn't it?
It's really difficult to kind of go yes or no in any treatment path, because I know there's a couple of ladies in our support group that have had a hysterectomy and they've not had any problems whatsoever, but then there's women that have, and they have had pain. So it's really hard to determine which is the right pathway, because it can be different for anybody. I know that a lady that had surgery with the same consultant that I had only a month prior, and she's fine. You know, she hasn't got any symptoms whatsoever. She's okay. But I had surgery and my symptoms have come back. So it's really hard to kind of say this is the one size fits all treatment plan. There isn't one, unfortunately. And what we're hoping to have is more research into the illness, try and get more people to fill in the surveys, the research surveys that come about that Endometriosis UK publish as well, because the more people that get involved, the more information we have and the more funding we get to try and get more kind of definitive routes of kind of causes, definitive routes of treatment as well.
Yeah, and like you said, there isn't actually a cure for it. It's just trying different things, isn't it? It's not like you can get a medicine from the doctors or the prescription and say, right, this will cure it. But no, it isn't. It's all these different avenues you've got to go down before you can even actually get some sort of treatment.
Definitely you could try everything, and I've tried it all, so it could be exhausting. I feel like a lab rat after a lot of it, so
So I'm just conscious that there's quite a few people on this on the session. People might not be open to asking questions because men like myself are on it, and there's a lot of people. So if they do want to contact you, is that okay?
Yes.
You can either contact Radha if you know her personally, or through Ben, or through myself, and I'm sure she can then talk to you about it if you wanted to, or you've got questions, or she can direct you to a specialist as well, if that's the case. So I am conscious about that, and people might not be asking questions because there's a lot of people on there.
Yeah, no worries. I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question, please? Uncles, fathers, partners, husbands out there, how can they help you to support you and in any way? Is there any way they can support you and understand how you're feeling and make you comfortable?
Oh, I'm frozen.
That's it.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you froze then for a second. There's loads of different ways that the males of that individual that has endometriosis can support. Having open communication is a big thing. I know from personal experience with my dad, I've been able to talk to him and to go, oh, Dad, I'm on my period. Just going, Dad, I'm on my period. And he knows that maybe I just need a cup of tea every now and then, or, he'll get me a hot water bottle. Simple things like even just having a dustbin in the bathroom. I know that sounds really weird. Some people don't have it, but having a dustbin in the bathroom, big game changer, because you're on your period, you lose a lot of blood. The last thing you want to do is keep going outside and putting it in the big wheelie bin. My dad, personally, he'll make me cups of tea. He'll make sure that I'm okay. He'll bring food. Food is always good. Just taking me to my appointments. So there's loads of times where I physically can't drive because of the pain, and just being someone that I can kind of go, Dad, I don't feel very well, or to my partner, I don't feel very well, and for him to be like, okay, what can we do to make it comfortable? What isn't the best thing is to go, oh, I wish I could magic this away. Nobody can magic the pain away, unfortunately, but just being there and being supportive, and offering help as well can be really beneficial to that individual. Okay. Rightio. I think that's everything. I think that's all the questions for today.
Thank you, Radha, for the presentation. Really appreciated, and appreciate your time with us as well. So thank you very much. So we'll close the session if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you for having me, and yeah, I hope it's been helpful.
Thank you.
Oh, take care. Bye bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye.